Hello guys, this is Donald's Movies, and welcome to the 49th episode of the World of Warcraft lore Q&As. Now in this video, I will be answering some of the questions that you guys have left in the previous video, and if you'd like to get your questions answered, make sure to send them by the YouTube comment section, or Facebook and Twitter. Also sometimes I might not feature them, but I will try to respond to them, and if I don't, I might have missed a message, and feel free to send it again after like a week or so. Because it's not like spam, just sometimes I don't really read it, or maybe I read it and get sidetracked, so I completely forget about it. But if I don't respond to it, just send it again and I will try to do my best. Alright, so let's not waste any more time and let's just get into the actual questions. First question is by Devon, and he asks, was alternate Grom overhyped? I suppose that's an odd way to say it, but due to all of this hype about Grom and the Gore Howl, I had high hopes for fighting a good villain, but I've only seen him once on a cliff in Tanan, and knowing the zone it was split between Kilrogg, Gul'dan, Arkoa and Ogres, maybe even Azul, and Grom himself. Not to be negative, but even to you, what are your thoughts about him? I kinda know what you mean. I mean, Grom Hellscream is in the official cinematic, and on all of the covers, even on like Battle.net and on the actual game, and it's supposed to be like the final boss, yet I haven't really seen all that much of him, apart from some minor appearances and at the end of Tanan Jungle, so yeah, I don't honestly feel like he's the main villain that we have to defeat or we lose everything, just like with the Lich King or Deathwing, or maybe even Garrosh in Mesopotamia at the end, but he was never really that much of a threat himself. But instead, I feel like the focus of the expansion is more on the orcs themselves and maybe the Burning Legion in the background, which honestly it is. I mean, it's not just what I think. But also, I know that the expansion isn't about Grom Hellscream, and it is about the Iron Horde, but still, I mean, he's the leader of the Iron Horde, so by some logical progression, he should be like the main bad guy and the biggest threat, which a lot of players honestly don't see him as, and I don't see him as, so I wouldn't really say he's like overhyped, but I think they're just using Grom Hellscream as sort of a dummy or something like that, just to give us kind of a bad guy, even though they might do a plot twist and make him into not that much of a villain and someone else will be like a villain, maybe someone from the Burning Legion or something like that. Alright, next question is by Pietrek, and he asks, I do have a rather specific question, crossbreeds / health breeds. Well, since we already have health elves, rather shunned by the both parentage societies like Arator, health ogres like Rexxar or orc / Draenei, Garona, Lantresor, partially Medan, are there possible other mixtures like dwarf / elf? Alright, so there are a lot of half breeds in World of Warcraft, but it is a bit confusing honestly, and from what I understood with the entire Medan situation, Blizzard kinda wants to lay off the crossbreeds for a while because it kinda messes up the lore and it can make some plot holes in the future, so that's why you don't really see that much apart from Garona and maybe Medan, but they're kinda keeping Medan out of the game. But I do think the entire mixed races are actually quite interesting, and there are more than just half ogres, half orcs and half Draenei. Generally races that are kinda similar biologically, in like a biological sense, they can mix together, just like the Night Elves and the Trolls, since they're pretty much the same. I mean, the Night Elves are like evolved trolls. Also humans and elves, although honestly, in my opinion, it doesn't really make that much sense to me. I mean, they kinda look the same in the game, but Blood Elves came from the Night Elves, and Night Elves were trolls, which would kinda make any sense that the humans would mix with trolls, but I guess there were some genetical adaptations with the Blood Elves, or just the High Elves, that made the entire thing possible. But all in all, it's pretty interesting when you think about it, especially with characters like Rexxar and Garona, and I would like to see more of different breeds in the future, like more advanced breeds, like evolved breeds, like mixed, so I think it will be pretty interesting. Alright, next question is by Carl, and he asks, I wanted to know about what you think about going to the other side of Azeroth. I would think it would be awesome to go there and find members of the Horde and the Alliance stranded there. It could be that they got blown off course in a storm on their way to Northrend, for example, and we would find out the Well of Eternity was so deep that it spanned into the other side of the planet. And we set out to investigate, and it probably doesn't make sense, but it would be cool if there was something similar. Alright, so I would say you're kinda right on that. It doesn't really make that much sense for the Well of Eternity to be so deep that it's coming out in the other side of the planet, if any physics laws apply to the world of Azeroth. But another side of Azeroth is entirely possible, as I have talked about this before, and it has been a discussion point in the World of Warcraft community for quite some time now that there is another side to the world of Azeroth. They even mentioned on BlizzCon, I believe, last year when the red shirt guy asked, and they said that it definitely could be there, and that there might be an entire new side of Azeroth that we had never seen before, and honestly, it just gives Blizzard quite a lot of space to change up Azeroth and add new things to the existing world. Also, it is said that people who went to the other side of Kalimdor or Eastern Kingdoms were never seen again. Not exactly Northrend, but just going to the different side, because you always see them traveling from like Kalimdor to Eastern Kingdom directly, near the Maelstrom, or just from Eastern Kingdom to Kalimdor, but no one goes like from Kalimdor to the other side to the Eastern Kingdom, because we don't really know the entire globe, so there might be an entire new side there. Also, it would be really interesting that all the sailors that went to the other side were stranded away somewhere, because they're said that whoever went there was never seen again, so it could be possible that maybe they have a base of their own, although I don't really know how that would work and how big they would actually be in numbers and how long they would survive. But it is also possible that there might be an entire new continent like Pandaria that is like shrouded in dense mists and it's not really reachable, although I don't really think they would go for the same thing in the next few expansions, because they already did the entire Mists of Pandaria and the Mists in Pandaria. But honestly, the entire idea of another side of Azeroth kind of fascinates me, and I would definitely want to learn more about it or find another continent on the world of Azeroth. Alright, and the last question is by Rosanna, and she asks, how did you react when Worlds of Draenor didn't have new races/classes? Also, who is your favorite character introduced in Worlds of Draenor? So I would kinda say I was disappointed at first, because a bit earlier I had people talking about the Burning Legion expansion and Ogres and Rakoa being playable, and later on I heard about the Dark Below and apparently playable Nagas, but none of that actually happened, and I honestly would have liked if they added new playable races or maybe even a new class. But I do think they did back up the lack of content with a lot of new unique content like the garrisons, and plus I was almost immediately impressed once they mentioned Draenor, as it is kind of my favorite place, since I play and roleplay an orc, and I read about a lot of orc lore, and they mentioned Draenor a lot. And even in roleplay, a lot of people talk about Draenor as the world before, and I thought it would be awesome if you could actually see it instead of just hearing about it. And now we're on there and we can see what happened before the entire destruction and how Draenor looked before it turned into the wasteland of Outland. So I think that is an amazing feature, and that's kind of what won the expansion for me. Also, favorite character that was introduced, I would probably go with Gunnar, as he seemed like quite a badass, especially with the sacrifice at the end of Frostfire Ridge. Plus, he made an appearance in Lords of War, and he seemed generally really cool through the entire questline, even though he doesn't really have all that much lore next to him, and he is kind of a newly introduced character. Now on the alliance part, I would probably go with Hirel, because most of the other characters like the warlords and some of the other people are actual lore figures that have been mentioned in the lore before, although a lot of detail has been added to them recently, and they're kind of changed characters, I guess, or a bit different characters than they were before. Alright, that is all I have for this Q&A. Thanks a lot for watching, and don't forget to leave your questions in the YouTube comment section below. Also, you can send your questions by Facebook and Twitter, and if I don't respond to them, or if you want to get them featured, just send them again and I will try to do my best to respond to them or feature them in the next video. Also, feel free to leave some suggestions on what sort of videos you would like to see in the future, because I have some plans and some feedback would be appreciated, as I'm kind of trying to mix up new stuff and trying to do YouTube more seriously now, so I want to do all sorts of different videos and kind of introduce some of the new stuff. Also, don't forget to like, favorite and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel and keeps the videos going. And check out my Twitch.tv stream, as I'm gonna be streaming there a lot more seriously in a few weeks, maybe even full time, so I would really appreciate it if you check out the stream. And thanks a lot for taking your time to watch this video, and see you next time.